to Under the Umbrella. I'm WDTN Plus meteorologist Melissa Barrington. And on Under the Umbrella, we talk about a wide range of topics. And today we are joined by Marianne Kabel from AES. She is the Director of Communications, and Andy Jacobs, who is an AES line crew manager. And I'd like to welcome both of you to the show today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So AES, of course, is power and light, and let's go ahead. We're going into winter here. We've already had our first snow of the season, which was pretty interesting. Let's start with basically how does AES prepare for a winter storm, and how is that different from maybe thunderstorms or spring storms?
So I can go ahead and talk about it from a line crew perspective. We monitor storms as they come in and through our service territory. So what we end up doing is having pre-meetings before the storm gets there. We talk about what kind of level it might transpire, basically trying to anticipate what the weather might do. And from that, we try to plan our staffing accordingly. That's with either internal crews or even the external crews. And then we talk about even staffing in the field. Do we have to prepare certain areas over others, or overstaff certain areas, or look at even calling in crews, and then talking about if a storm is that big, like you can see here online where you can see the weather's coming through. If it comes through, we have additional resources where they're mutual aid or outside. And then we have people internally that do attend those meetings, and they talk about the weather in a regional standpoint. So we do it locally and we do it regionally. And so we try to anticipate what is going to come down and how we need to prepare for these storms.
So Marianne, how should folks at home prepare for any of these storms?
That's a great question, and a great segue too, because it's just as important for customers to prepare as well. And advanced planning is key. And as we have seen, our weather patterns have changed tremendously over the years. We've had everything from tornadoes. We now have hurricanes that we look out for. So there's three things I always say is be prepared by building a storm kit. So what's a storm kit? That's going in and getting one of those larger tubs, putting in the flashlights, the batteries in the wintertime, consumable items that are non-perishable. Make sure you have water, make sure you have cash, all those essentials, especially take in consideration if you have medications, and if those medications need to be refrigerated, then make sure they're in like a cooler and you have proper cooling for those medications. So that's the one thing. The other thing too is making sure that your family is prepared, whether you're at home or you're outside of the house, to make sure they know what to do in the case of emergency. And your home, make sure there's a safe spot so that everyone could gather together, especially with tornadoes. Please heed those warnings and those tests that they have, because it is more significant these days than ever. The other thing too is be informed. Be informed is tuning into WDTN for the latest weather. It's also being informed on your phone, making sure that those alerts are coming on your phone, and bookmark certain numbers, important family members. Make sure you have the AES outage number, because you need to call us. Let us know whether or not you are out of power, or it could be anything. It could be that the storm came through and there might be a line or a broken pole. So please keep that number bookmarked.
And within all of these storms, there's typically a wind component, whether that's thunderstorms, winter storms, or even just a daily windy day. So when we're talking about wind, what's the threshold that you guys are looking for within all of these variable types of storms?
So a lot of times from what we look at from a line perspective, if we had sustained winds or wind gusts of 40 miles an hour, that's going to do some devastating things to some of the trees, stuff like that. Could cause potential outages. Like you see right here online, you can see where the trees broke. And they break down, take down the power lines, and we have to go and respond accordingly. Really, if there's wind that's sustained between 28 and 30 miles an hour, usually the guys cannot fly their buckets. Usually a lot of times we have to wait for some of that wind subside down before we can come out and do the restoration efforts like you're talking about. And that's part of the problem. It takes us time to get out there, is also just not only the wind, but the debris that comes on the roads and power lines that are down. And we really do, like Marianne said, is a lot of people call in and they give us some really good tips of where we need to go to, what we need to do. They report some really good information of wires down, what address it's located at. The police and fire do the same thing. When you report it to them, they report it to us. So it's a constant communication between what we see online and what we see from the customers and where we need to respond. The better information we get, the better information we can receive. We can get out there to it and restore customers at a faster pace.
So do you guys always know where all the power outages are, or do you actually want people then to call you and let you know, even if you may know already?
There's a couple things there I wanted to highlight too. Back to what Andy was saying about preparation and so on, and about the trees. And when we have those sustained winds of 40 plus, that's when we see the damage in the down power lines. So, there's planting season, and there's also fall planting season. So you're looking down at the ground as to what you're doing or what you're planting or what seasonal things you're having to plant or landscape now for the spring. So don't only look down, look up, because if your trees need trimming, this is the time to do it as well, because a majority of outages are due to trees in our lines. We take care of those through our tree trimming and tree clearance and vegetation management, but those on your property are the customer's responsibility. So going back to your question, if you could repeat that, please.
I was asking about like if it was relevant for folks to still tell you whether or not like that their power is out. I'm assuming that like I am going to assume like when my power goes out that you guys know that it's out, but you may not know. Is
You
that
never
right?
assume anything. It never hurts to give us a call. You can also report your outage online. Now, through our smart grid technology, many of our customers have had their meters exchanged. So with the meter exchange, it's being pinged like every 19 minutes. Is the power on? Is the power on? So we do get those notifications as this program has rolled out. But be safe, be smart, call AES.
So what do you guys do when there's like a potential ice or heavy snowstorm? How do you prepare? How is that different? Is that handled differently, for example, especially for the linemen? I mean, do you send people out or do you wait until after the storm? Or do you position people like during the storm, like, oh, we typically have a problem in this area, so we're going to already stage somebody here just in case?
That's correct. So it's a little bit of everything.
Okay.
So it's all rolled into one. It all depends what type of storm's coming in, where it's going to hit. It could hit in our northern section, could be above I-70, it could be below I-70. We monitor that and we try to figure out what's going to be best course of action. Do we need to keep the guys inside, have them all standing by ready to go, or do we make a call out and bring the guys in after the storm itself? A lot of times with the winter storms, you want to try to just stage them, just have them come in first, see where it would be a potential ice storm would hit, and then we try to respond accordingly from there. But it's going to take us a little bit longer for those type of storms compared to the summer storms that we have. So
Yeah, and even for folks that don't have power lines above them, still people with below underground lines, they still have problems, right?
correct.
I know my power's gone
Yeah.
out, and mine are underneath, and I hear a lot of times, oh, it was a squirrel, or something. But
That's correct. So all your power lines all come out of the ground and go above overhead, and whether they're going from substation to substation or from the substation out to the actual customers themselves, at some point it does transition. So a lot of the newer plats that you see right now have the green boxes out front. That's our pad mount transformers, and that's the way they get fed is from underground from those. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So when you have like a major power outage, how do you go about deciding where you're going to go first? I mean, you had to think that was going to come up. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
there's got to be some rhyme or reason of how that is going to work out. So what's the pecking order? I mean, it might depend storm to storm. I could see that happening too.
So I could probably take it first.
That's
Basically,
then I'll go on with the additions to that too.
So at times you look at the priority of what's out. Are we talking about hospitals out, fire stations, police stations? You even go down, try to look at the individual customers who's on life support, stuff like that. But inevitably, like I said, all the lines come out overhead. So we have to start from the substation down. So if the transmission line is out that feeds the substation, we have to get that up first. But we do have other crews working on the other areas as we go along. So we'll have the substation up and running. Then we'll start working out the main line. Those 3 lines that you see up above heading out, that's our main line that's going down there. So we'll have individual crews working on each of those individual lines as they come out, and then they'll be working on services. So kind of is a progression from the substation down to the main line, out to the tap that feeds the customers, and then down to their service. But inevitably, we have guys working on all of them all about the same time. Mm-hmm. And then we have some safety things. So I brought a little thing that I could show you guys.
Okay, yeah.
So you can see where we have worker on the line. So we'll wrap these around a pole. It gives a 360 view of the pole itself. Mm-hmm. So you could tell that we have an abnormal condition on that pole on that tap that goes down there. And so one of the things that we use as a lockout tagout procedure is you have it to where you have a crew goes on here. So this would go into the actual band itself, and the band goes around the pole. So some customers always ask, they said, well, why am I out of power? Or where am I being fed from? A lot of times you'll end up seeing those 360-degree wraps that we have on the poles in order to be able to keep our crew safe, but also to spot an abnormal condition. condition that we have already seen and we are already aware of.
Okay.
So hopefully that helps some of the
Oh, yeah.
customers and residents that are out there.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen that myself,
Yeah.
but that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would encourage customers. I know it's when you do see our crews out there, the work that they do is very dangerous. So it's not the time to go up and ask people about your power. Make sure you call your outage in if you're experiencing that. Check on your neighbors, your family members. Make sure they need what they have to have for, the essentials at home in case they're out of power. So that's key. That's very key for the safeguarding of our employees as well as for our customers too. So
And the linemen are out usually working in adverse weather.
very much so.
Like they're trying to get to a location where the trees and the power lines are down too. So there's a lot of safety issues going on here. That's for sure.
Yeah, thank you, Marion. Yeah, all our linemen, we do appreciate all the customer support and service. We've had them bring out water, food, a little bit of everything, but we appreciate it. But again, it's just one of those things. Try to let us get into that backyard. Let's get into where we need to do our work. We appreciate that.
And sometimes you don't even see the trucks. Going back to your analogy, or how our restoration process works.
Yeah.
We could be blocks, if not miles away, but we're working on your line.
Correct.
Yeah, and some lines break up within neighborhoods. I know my neighborhood's broken up into multiple lines,
That's
and it's
correct.
like so one side might get it and the other side may not. Some people have power, some don't. So it's variable.
It is. It is.
A lot going on here, a lot of moving parts.
Yes.
All right, well, we are going to take a quick break, and when we return, we are going to continue our conversation with AES. We'll be right back. Welcome back to this edition of Under the Umbrella. So glad you could join us today. Today we are talking to AES, and we are talking with Marianne Kabel, who's the Director of Communications, and Andy Jacobs, who is a line crew manager for AES. And again, thank you both for joining us. And we are going to start the second half by talking a little bit about some of the big storms that we have had across the Miami Valley over the past several years. And I know, Andy, you said you have a top 10 list there for us. And I'm sure Ike has got to be, if not number one of the top ones. And then you had the Memorial Day tornadoes. And I have not seen this list, but I can just kind of guess a few of these. Why don't you tell me a little bit about some of them?
I can definitely do it. I got to put my glasses on for this.
That's okay. But boy, I remember some of these. So, I know a lot of folks are going to say, yeah.
Correct. So the first one we're looking at September 14th of 2008. That was a Hurricane Ike. That was our number one storm event. Number two is June 29th, 2012, if everybody remembers the derecho. Mm-hmm. That was another one. And then we have on May 27th, 2019, that was Memorial Day tornadoes.
Yep.
So I think we had somewhere around maybe between 15 and 16. I don't know if they were all confirmed or not, but the number 4 was actually here recently, just last year, September 27th of 2024, and that was Hurricane Helene.
Yes, and that one brought in a lot of flooding and stuff too. Yeah,
that's correct.
Yep.
So one of the things that I wanted to go with just the top 4 right there. So number 3 in the Memorial Day tornadoes, we had 900 poles that we had to change, and in Helene we only had 193. So it gives you a little bit of basis how it looks with some of the things. So like I said, number 5 was an ice storm back on January 5th, 2025, and then just goes on from there for your top 10. So another, a couple more ice storms and severe thunderstorms after that, but the top 5 were the ones that were key.
And it's interesting that we have hurricanes being in the top 5 and we live nowhere near the ocean. I mean, that's pretty amazing, really.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to the winds. We're talking about sustained winds for a duration amount of time, and the trees can only take so much. The lines that, with your equipment and everything. And so that's probably one of the things we battle the most is we do our routine tree trimming. So we trim probably we're trying to get, I'd say 2,200 miles of tree trimming a year done, I would say almost. And we're trying to keep the trees away from the power lines so we could be able to continue to have that better reliability that everybody expects and wants.
Right.
So it's all part of it.
And if 40 miles an hour wind is your threshold, and if we even just get a windstorm, of multiple hours, of 12 hours of, winds 40 plus mile an hour, I mean, that's not even a major storm. I mean, to me, that seems like a low threshold of 40 miles an hour.
Yeah, you can get with it being full on in the summertime, you usually get a lot of downdrafts that come down, and then they have to determine whether it's a tornado or straight line winds. The straight line winds really make it, because some of the trees are just not expecting that type of movement. That's part of the problem, and then they crack and break. But during the winter times, you do not have the leaves on the trees, so we can sustain the 30-mile-an-hour, 35-mile-an-hour winds, even 40 at times, because like you see the picture right here, you have it to where the winds can come through the trees. Now, the biggest thing about this event here with the snow and the ice is the weight on the power lines, weight on the tree limbs. It just ends up putting too much weight and brings and cracks and splits the poles.
So if somebody runs into this and they see this like outside their home where there's a down tree, a down
Yes.
power line, what are they supposed to do?
Call AES Ohio.
But they're not, they shouldn't go
8774
near
outage.
it, right?
No, do not. We have to make sure everything's safe, that the lines are de-energized. Don't take it upon yourself to do that. There are instances that we've heard numerous times where people are very concerned, or if it's on their home or on an outbuilding that they have. But, please be mindful of that. I wanted to add too, with the accumulation of ice, and we see that really in the, you almost divide our service territory. North of 75 and, north of 70, south of 70. It's almost like two different weather patterns altogether. So more snow north, more ice south. About, what is it, about half an inch on tree branches?
We're looking
really.
at half inch is pretty devastating.
It is, and
It
that's
is.
when you get that breakage and everything too.
Yeah.
So that's really concerning to our crews too, and all the slippery roads and everything. So winter is dangerous. Believe it or not, the summer storms are the toughest though. They really are.
Is that because they're so scattered, or is it more because they're more isolated, or is it more like when a line of storms comes through and it just rakes everybody? Like what's worse, like individual?
Combination thereof, because the thing is you could have rain, and you have these tree fails that they just fall.
Oh, yeah.
Or you have a lot of wind, and then maybe the tree doesn't go down in that storm, but then you have a consecutive storm that comes behind and they've already weakened.
Yeah.
Or worse yet, which we see a lot of in the Midwest. I feel like that tornado alley is starting to move a little over to the east.
No, it's true.
And it can spin up out of nowhere. And the thing that is really, that we have to be super cautious about is the fact that it seems the pattern is those tornadoes are not only coming more frequently, they're coming in the evening and they're coming in multiples.
Yes.
And I will say that your idea here of I-70 being a cutoff from like a weather standpoint, that is very true. A lot of times that's where we naturally divide everything. It's like north of I-70. There's these natural cutoffs in weather, like where things are going to occur. Like I can tell you, like a lot of times, like State Route 48, they're more likely going to get more rain than if you're over by the Dayton Mall. And there's just, there's all of these like little natural nuances based on the topography of the area. And so it's very true. And you don't always like to generalize it necessarily like that to say, oh, north of I-70, you're going to have this much more snow versus south of I-70. But it's a natural, thing that's there.
Well, here's the other thing too. Dayton, well, let's take a look at our service territory. We serve 24 counties.
Yeah.
24 counties.
That's a lot.
Everywhere from suburbs to rural areas.
Yep.
So what they find in the rural areas are those with those straight line winds. I mean, they can be very devastating because they have nothing in terms of like blocking them. And then the metro areas, of course, there's more of a dense population, and then you have, especially with restoration, sometimes getting to the back of those houses where the lines are. It just, not only is it treacherous, but it takes time.
Yeah, it all takes time, and it's so variable. I mean, 24 counties, that's a lot of counties to cover. And like you said, it's just so different for everyone else. Do you have, you mentioned something earlier about life support earlier. Do you guys have something with people with medical conditions that need to have electricity? Can they do anything? Like if they probably may not have a generator, for example, is there any type of priority to those folks?
That's a great question, and we get it fairly often.
Okay.
So if one of our customers has a medical condition or is on critical life support, number one, if you're experiencing those or have that condition, make sure you have a backup plan. Absolutely have a backup plan. If it's a generator, if it's, having your medications put in a cooler right away, you have to take the ownership of that as well. But it's also just as important to call AES and let us know. We cannot guarantee that your restoration will be any quicker depending on the storm because of all those variables, but please let us know.
So how far in advance are you guys preparing for a storm? Like, do you work with the National Weather Service? Do you have like another private weather company, or are you just watching us on TV saying, I'm sure you've got something more than that, but are you coordinating with the National Weather Service, for example, if there's a storm coming through? Or
We have a number of tools that we use, and we're watching the weather 24/7 every day of the week, whether it's a blue sky day or, the weather is inclement. We're watching it, and we're using those tools that we have and those services that we have to make those assumptions, as Andy was sharing, so that we could better prepare, so we can have, quicker and shorter restoration times for our customers.
And a lot of it's just experience that we have, right?
Yeah.
We could see a storm coming in. How does it develop from Indianapolis over to here? And you could watch it. Sometimes you see storms pop up. Sometimes they die out at state line for whatever knows reason. But it's better be prepared and have people ready than to not be prepared. So we've learned that in the past is like you have your plan and you try to enact your plan. If we missed it and we overshot for it, so to speak, that's fine. We have the crews here. So even if anything else, we could still handle some of the smaller stuff and take care of that right away.
Well, here's the other thing too. Some of the storms, not just the west to east path, but when they come from the south, they're the most devastating.
that was Ike.
Yes,
right there, right on top. And any of those hurricanes, they're coming from the south.
Yep.
Yeah. But we are looking several days out to talk and plan. And, every weekend we're planning on what we're going to do for the weekend, seeing who's going to be here. We try to monitor all those different aspects of the job itself. And then we just plan accordingly.
And we call up the storm team. We bring in
We have the internal resources. Yeah.
all our internal resources, from communications to materials to the line crews to the people that are in systems operations, to make sure we're at the ready for any circumstance.
Yeah.
And we have backup and backup to the backup.
Yes, we do.
And in any of those like major events, or maybe even recent events, have you ever, I assume you've had other crews come in from other states to help here?
That's correct. So we have two mutual aids that we're part of. We're part of the, I think, Midwest or regional. Great Lakes, sorry, thank you. And then down to southeast is basically the Florida area. So when one is experiencing hurricanes, we can go down there to work, or same thing. If we have experiences in our area, we can bring them up here to work. And so it's just basically just a conference call that they have and figure out how many what we call FTE, full-time employees. Basically, we want to look to see what kind of crews we need, what kind of equipment might need. And so now we're starting to get into the phase of trying to pre-plan some of these events that come in so we know what to ask for beforehand. If we could see that storms coming in like Helene or somebody that's coming up from the south, we could see what it did down there, and then we could start calling for those crews to come down and stage earlier. So that's one of the keys is that we're looking at is trying to use AI, use some of the tools that we have for us in order to try to plan and prepare for these events before they even get here.
So the theme I am hearing from everything that you guys have been talking about is prepare, prepare, prepare.
Oh, yeah.
And it seems like there's probably not enough preparation to be done. And you constantly are learning from all of these
Oh, we are. Yes.
events and different types of weather scenarios, that's for sure.
No storm is the same.
It's
I'm
not.
going to take a quote from someone we all used to work with, just like with the poles. A pole could be hit by an accident and no customers out. A pole could be hit in a different area and you could take out neighborhoods. So no poles are created equal in that sense, and no storms are created
That's
equal.
correct. Very true.
Well, with that note, I would like to thank both of you for being on this edition of Under the Umbrella. This has been very enlightening and extremely informative. And thank you for joining us on Under the Umbrella. Until next time, have a great night.